Good morning students, this is Mr. Rao. So in the previous session I started explaining about the human common diseases that are all caused by the various types of pathogens. As a part of that, in the last session I explained about different kind of diseases that are all caused by the bacteria and their incubation period and how they do show its influence or their effect on the human body. Then what is the prevention, what is the cure for such a kind of diseases. About all of them we discussed in the previous session in a detailed way. In today's session I'd like to give you the detailed information regarding some of the diseases that are all caused by the group of viruses and their symptoms and what is the cure or prevention for all the diseases. Let us see now in a detailed way. Viruses causes various types of diseases in the human body, and these diseases here shows their influence or their effect on the different kind of human beings. So coming to the types of the diseases caused by this virus, here we are going to discuss, or one thing is the common cold. We call it as here rhinitis is one of the disease caused by a virus. Whereas the second type of disease that we are going to see is Polio Mellitus. The Polio Mellitus generally is known as Infantile Paralysis. And the third disease that we are going to study here is rabies, and this is otherwise known as Hydrophobia. And the another disease caused by the virus, it includes the chikungunya, and thereafter the another one is the dengue. The dengue is otherwise known as breakbone fever, and thereafter the another one is viral hepatitis. These are all the various types of viral diseases that we are going to see in detail in the coming session. Right, let us see each one in a detailed way. Coming to here, the first important disease is a common cold. When you see this common cold, you all might have suffered from this common cold by this time. And this common cold here are technically known as rhinitis. The reason for knowing it as a rhinitis, it causes by a group of viruses, and these viruses are known as here rhino group of viruses. Here causative organism is rhinoviruses, which are all the group of viruses. Here the point is, this common cold is not caused by a single variety of virus. It is caused by the various types of viruses, and all the viruses that causes this common cold are together known as a rhino group of viruses. Right. Then what is the mode of infection? Generally the common cold is get transmitted in two different ways. One is the direct way. Then how does it happens? During the direct way, the droplets of an infected person, here when he sneezes his nose, and when he speaks, when he cough and blow his nose, the droplets of saliva it enter into the air. If these droplets fall on a healthy person directly, then it get transmitted. That is actually the first mode of transmission. As I said here just now, the droplets of an infected person when he cough and when he sneezes. In these two cases, from the here affected person directly they do get transmitted from one person to the another person. This is actually the mode of transmission. These are all the droplets that arises, and if they directly falls on here on healthy person, then this directly will be get transmitted. This is one type of here transmission. Thereafter this get transferred even in the indirect way also. That indirect way, the things or the objects that are all used by an infected person, without disinfecting them, if a healthy person use those kind of objects, then this virus is get transmitted. Let us see here what are all the objects that naturally helps in transmission of this disease. Here these objects here includes, first one is the pen, is one object. If an infected person used a pen, and if the same pen is get used by a healthy one, then this disease is get transmitted, is one thing. Thereafter the books, that are all used by an infected person. Next, the cup that is used by the infected person. Thereafter, door knobs is one thing, and thereafter the computer nowadays we are using the keyboard of the computer as well as the mouse of a computer also. When a person is used, if the same thing is get used by a healthy one, then definitely this disease is get transmitted from person to person. So these are all the modes of transmission of this common cold. And thereafter, what will be the organs affected when a person is suffering from this common cold? Let us see now here. First, the organ that affected during this case is the nose of a person. Is one thing. So the first organ that affected is the nose. Whereas the second here organ that affects during this common cold, it includes the air passage or respiratory tract. This is the respiratory tract will be get affected. These are the two important organs that will be get affected when a person is suffering from the common cold. But here the very important point that need to be noted is, generally we feel that when we are suffering from the common cold, even our lungs also get affected. Here the point is, your lungs never get effects because of the common cold, and these lungs or never get affected when you are suffering from this common cold. Then what are the incubation here period and thereafter the symptoms of the disease? Let us see now here the incubation period of this one. Almost all the incubation period, it includes a 3 to 7 days span of time. See this, the incubation period. And you know that incubation is a period that is present in between the invention as well as manifestation. Once the disease causing pathogen enter in the body, it takes some time for the manifestation. That period is known as incubation period. The time taken by this virus for manifestation of the common cold is 3 to 7 days span of time. Then once the here manifestation is occurred, what will be the symptoms you can see commonly in a person suffering from the common cold? The first and foremost important here symptom of this one, congestion of the nose is one important thing. Congestion of the nose in the sense, in general terms we used to call it as here nostril blockages. The nose will be here get blocked when you are suffering from the common cold. It makes you to feel difficulty in breathing. One thing. Thereafter, the nostril discharge is also one more important here symptom. So, nostril congestion and nostril discharge is one of the very important characteristic feature of this disease. And therefore, thereafter, when you see here the sore throat, here in this case the throat will become sore is one thing. The hoarseness in the voice will be, when the person is talking, then the hoarse voice it comes out when he is suffering from the common cold. And thereafter you can see the another important symptom, the headache is very common. The headache, he suffer from the headache is one thing, and thereafter he will here suffer from the continuous cough, and great tiredness also the person will get here suffer from. So all these are the here symptoms we can see. So I repeat once again, the sore throat, hoarseness in the voice, thereafter continuous cough, headache, and that is followed by great tiredness. These are all here some other symptoms of this common cold. Then finally, what is the prevention method for this? Since it is a viral infection, here very important thing, there is no here the vaccination at all for the common cold, and that too there is no therapy also for this common cold. There is a joke generally used to crack on a common cold, that is one thing, if you are suffering from a common cold, if you take a medicine, the common cold can be cured within the 7 days span of time. If you don't take the medicine also, then the common cold will be get cured within 1 week span of time. Then what does the meaning of this joke? So even if you use a medicine, and even if you don't use the medicine, the common cold will be get disappear from your body within the 7 days or 1 week span of time. So there is no vaccination for this here common cold. So that is an important thing need to be noted. Only the drugs that are all available to us to relieve you from the symptoms. So there is a symptomatic therapy only available to us. The symptomatic therapy, it includes taking the various types of drugs, and these drugs, it includes, one is the antihistamine. So when you are suffering from that, histamine is a kind of here the chemical that releases into your body. In order to suppress the action of the histamine, generally we do take the drugs, and that drugs includes antihistamines. And that too, I said already, you are suffering from the nostril congestion when you are here suffer from this. So in order to relieve your here nostril congestion, generally we do take decongestants or the drugs. So these two types of drugs generally we use in order to relieve from the symptoms only, but it is not the cure, that to be noted. So this is all about here the common cold. Next, let us see the one more important disease that is caused by the virus. One more viral disease, that is Polio Mellitus. So this is an important one, and particularly this disease, it happens to occur in the infants or the children, those whose age is below the 5 years. That is the reason why we call this Polio Mellitus as infantile paralysis. So since it is occurring only in the children below the 5 years, we call it as infantile. The important symptom of this disease, it makes your skeletal muscles very weak, so that your here hands and legs will become very weak. It's almost all similar to the paralysis. So since it is taking place in the infants, and that is almost all here like a paralysis, so the Polio Mellitus is otherwise known as infantile paralysis. And the causative here viral pathogen which causes this infantile paralysis or the polio is enterovirus. In general, we call it as polio virus. Since this virus, it enters in your stomach and lives in the intestine. That is the reason why this is known as enterovirus also. Then how it get transmitted? And the polio is get transmitted through fecal oral route. I explained already the fecal oral route. It means the persons who is suffering from the poliomyelitis, and in his stool the virus is present. And if the tool is get here come into contact with a food and water that you are consuming through any other vector or a vehicle, then if that type of contaminated water and food that you take, generally it enter in your intestine and it causes a disease. So that here this mode of transmission is known as fecal oral route. Then how it is get transmitted? Once the virus is enter in your here the body, it enters into your intestine. Thereafter the virus it enter into your bloodstream. From the bloodstream it reaches to your nervous system. Particularly your nervous system will be get affected because of this virus. This is the way or the route how this virus it get transmitted or transported within your body. And this is what we call first is alimentary canal. From there it get enters into the blood and finally it reaches your nervous system. So particularly motor nerves will be get affected by this virus, and your muscles also will be get severely become weak is one thing. And then once it is get enter in your body, then how much time does it takes? So almost all 7 to 14 days span of time is the incubation period. So 7 to 14 days in the sense 1 to 2 weeks span of time is actually the incubation period for this virus. Then once it completes its incubation period, what kind of symptomatic characters will be developed? And we will see here the symptomatic characters it includes. Here inflammation of nervous system will be taken place. Inflammation is nothing but swelling of your nervous system, which includes your brain as well as the spinal cord. And this will be basically affected. Once it done, you can see here stiffness in the neck will be taken place. In the neck, the stiffness will be developed. And thereafter, the another important characteristic feature, lymphoadenopathy is one thing, and here it causes the weakness of your skeletal muscles. The skeletal muscles becomes very weak. In the first PU, structural organization, there you studied the different types of muscles. It includes the skeletal muscles, thereafter here the smooth muscles and cardiac muscles. Of these three types of muscles, your skeletal muscles, which are all voluntary in their action, become very weak by the action of this virus on us. And thereafter you can see, and when this disease is get affected, then you can see some of the characteristic features. Before the appearance of this polio, what are the characteristics will be appear in the body? The person will suffer from the fever is one thing, headache and chilliness, and thereafter the body pains. So these are all the characters that you can happen to see. See one by one. One is the high fever the person will suffer from. Thereafter the headache you can see, and chilliness, and there you can see pain all over the body. So these are all the common symptoms you can see within the person who about to get this polio disease. Then what is the prevention for this? I said, if you come to know about the root, how it is get transmitted, if you can stop that mode of transmission, that will be a prevention naturally. Then here, apart from that, you can have two types of vaccinations are available. Most of you might be heard about this here, the pulse polio program. Every year Indian government used to give some polio vaccinations to all the children, those whose age is below the 5 years. So it has taken up here as a great program. So in Indian government here, it want to eradicate the entire polio from our nation. And in this case, they used to give the two types of here vaccinations. Generally, you are all well aware about that oral polio here drops, polio drops. This is one thing. Apart from that, an injection is also available to us. Polio injection is also there, which we call it as here sac vaccine. The reason for giving the name for this as a sac vaccine, the scientist who discovered this one is here John Sack. John Sack is the name of the scientist who discovered and this one, and that too the important thing, sac vaccination is an injection. We do take here through an injection. And whereas the another one is OPV. This generally we used to call it as oral polio vaccination. This kind of vaccination you do take in the form of drops through our mouth. So this we call it as here oral polio vaccination. It was here developed by Sabin et al. Is the name of a doctor. So by taking these two types of vaccinations till you reach to the 5 years, we can here prevent this kind of disease. This is all about here polio vaccination and the symptoms caused by this one. Next we will see the another here